Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this whole debate between intensity and progressive overload, because I hear this sometimes, and this is stuff I've heard people discuss over the years, even some bodybuilders, and they'll say, look, we don't need progressive overload as long as you're training to failure or you're training close to failure, you're stimulating muscle growth, you're good. And what people are not understanding when they get into these arguments is that both roads lead to the same place, all right? And what we need to understand, if you are not making the exercise harder, the intensity is going to go down. Okay, so we need to understand that. In a lot of ways, they're different terms or ideas to get to the same goal, and that means working harder, getting to the upper threshold muscle fibers, getting to the deeper fibers that are going to have the most potential for growth. That's what we are talking about here. Right? And so here's the thing that I would say to someone. Let's say whatever the exercise is. You got 150 pounds on the bar, the machine, the dumbbell, the cable, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a curl or we're talking about a deadlift. Right? 150 pounds. You can do 8 reps with it, and it's really hard. Let's say you're doing 3 sets of 8, and they're really, really challenging. Right? You maybe have 1 rep left, or you're even hitting failure on rep 8 on the 3rd set. Right? Your intensity level from a perceived exertion is high. Right? It's high already. If you continue to do that exercise and you gain muscle from it, it's going to get easier. Do you understand this? Muscle mass increases force production. It increases work capacity. So in other words, people have these weird ideas too that, oh yeah, your 10 rep max will go up, but your 1 rep max won't. Yeah, that's not how it works. For you as a person with your current neural drive and muscles and leverages on any lift, your 10 rep max, your 5 rep max is probably going to scale pretty proportionate with your 1 rep max. People forget this. Granted, people who practice maxing tend to be a little better at maxing, okay? But setting that aside, obviously, these things are going to scale. It's just force production. So again, even the strength in the muscle increases work capacity, right? In other words, when you were able to bench 275 versus when you get to 350, your 225 rep max is going to be considerably higher. Probably going to be 5 or 6 reps higher, maybe even more than what it was. So you need that perspective, right? We need that perspective. So when we look at it from that context, well, if we're still training hard and we're getting close to failure, if you don't add reps, it's just going to get easier and easier. And if we look at things like effective rep theory, which I'm not saying I fully buy into, I think there is certainly a degree of truth to it, that pretty much the closer we get to muscle failure, the more muscle stimulus we get on a rep for rep basis. Now, the theory oftentimes is if we're within 5 reps of failure, that's where the growth happens. Well, I don't know that that's even true, but I think we all agree that the closer we get to failure, the more effective the rep is. And it might be for some people 8 reps from failure. Some people might be there. We can argue about this all day. It's never been a fully proved theory. And I feel like the 5 might be slightly arbitrary, and that's okay. But when we're talking effective reps, eventually, if you keep doing 150 pounds for sets of 8, you're going to grow and grow, and you're going to get a diminished training response over the course of weeks or months. And when it gets easier and easier, you're going to get to where you're not stimulating any muscle growth, right? It might stimulate X amount of growth here. As you get a little stronger, you'll say your effective reps go down. So let's say you were getting 5 effective reps per set, 15 total. Let's just work off that theory. And then it gets easier to where it turned into your 9 rep max, your 10 rep max. What if you can do it for 10 and now you're doing 3 sets of 8? Well, now we're down to about 9 effective reps instead of 15. Well, what happens when you get to where you can do about 12 reps with it? You might only be getting 2 or 3, 4 effective reps for the whole workout. It's no longer difficult. Your intensity went down. So if we're using this idea that the intensity itself is the driver instead of the mechanical tension end, because again, you could approach this a couple different ways. You're going to have to just keep adding reps. And most of you out there, you're not going to get infinitely big with sets of 20 on all your exercises, okay? In fact, a lot of them just get downright grueling and your cardio starts to limit you. It can be real hard trying to do multiple sets of 20 on a squat or a deadlift or even a leg press, okay? You're going to get to a point where this is turning into cardio. I'm not saying there's not stimulus, but you're getting pretty fatigued, and your cardio might start limiting you at a certain point. Okay, you're going to have to add some weight to the bar. You see where we're going with this? Otherwise, you're not training intensely. You're going to get to a point to where your workouts are so lackluster in terms of how close you are getting to failure and getting to those deeper muscle fibers that you're either going to have to add reps, you're going to have to add weight, or you're going to have to find a way to make the exercise harder, right? But you're going to run out of stuff to do that. Again, a 20-pound dumbbell, you can only lower it so slow before it's no longer causing any extra stimulus either. Because we know really slow negatives don't cause any extra growth. Now we're just getting tired. Okay, we're just getting tired. So, I mean, sure, you can go stricter, you can squeeze a little harder, you can lower it a little slower. You can do those things to make the exercise, or you can go to a deeper range of motion, maybe pause at the bottom on certain movements, maybe your dumbbell presses, right? You can do things to make the lift a little harder in terms of the mechanical tension, but there's going to be a limit to that. What happens when you're already doing that? What are you going to do? Pause 10 seconds at the bottom of every stretched rep? Pause 20 seconds? What are you going to do? You're going to have to add weight. Sooner or later, if you want to gain muscle, you're going to have to add tension. You're going to have to add tension at some point, right? There's a reason you didn't see Ronnie Coleman doing sets of 1,000 with the empty barbell on the bench press. I'm just saying, guys. Right? So, when we have this debate, it's really a nonsense debate because you're going to have to progressively overload. It's just that if you're using the proximity to failure, then well, you're going to have to just keep adding. But if you just add weight when it gets difficult, and then you work in that way, well, when I can get to sets of 10, I need to add 5 pounds or whatever to the lift, and work up till it's hard, and then when I can get to 10 or 12, where do you can add again? Okay, you could do something like that. That's just forcing progressive overload in terms of the weight. So now we're focusing on the progressive overload, but it's still keeping the intensity high. It's simply addressing the weight versus looking at the intensity and going, well, this is getting too easy, I've got to change something. It's purely just having a plan for it. It's having a plan. Now, if we're doing submaximal weights, like a lot of novice programs, a squat and bench press or whatever, sure. If we can still complete the reps, we add 5 pounds or whatever on these linear programs, and when we start failing the reps, we reduce the weight 10% and repeat it. But in that case, people say, well, you might be starting a little too light, but is that okay? If you're a novice, and let's say you really could do 10 reps with 135 pounds, you're going to get there real fast adding the 5 pounds. And as a novice, you'll still probably grow from that, right? Even if you're like, well, a deadlift for 135 is too light. Well, you keep adding 5 pounds. But even if you could do 225 or whatever, you're just really strong naturally. As a novice, you still might gain some muscle from it. So it still all balances out in the end. Understand that these things all work together. It's not a different argument. It's just two approaches of looking at the same thing to get us to the same end result, more mechanical tension and workload on the muscle. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.